Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Tommo, and welcome to my post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And what a race it was. Thank you all for joining me wherever you are. Halita, Grey-Eyed, FH4, Potis, Tina, Coleridge, J. Lewis, Govstar, Nim, Senior, and the rest of you here live on YouTube. Also, welcome to everyone who's watching this post-race, whether that's live on YouTube or, so I say not live on YouTube, after the fact on YouTube, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the rest. First time as well, this one is going to be going up in video form on Spotify. I've got video Spotify access, so that's going to be a thing from now on. If you want to watch these post, but you want to see me and you want to consume it via Spotify, well, you can do, okay? That option will now be available. I can usually get these live within about half an hour of me wrapping up the live stream. I get it all cut, get it out on all the pod networks. Bosh, lovely, jubbly. How are we feeling, everyone? How are we feeling about what was a pretty interesting, pretty fascinating, pretty tense, intense, I think is the word that that immediately comes out to mind for me for that race. It was a good one, wasn't it? Baku gives or it takes away. It tends to be one extreme or the other. And fortunately, this was in the positive extreme as far as I'm concerned. As for you lot, well, race rating out of 10, I did put a live poll out on YouTube. 522 of you have voted. 26% of you have given it a 10 out of 10. 40% a 9. 28% an 8. And 6% of you have given it a 7 or lower. A 7 or lower for that? Damn, you must have high expectations if you're giving that race a 7 or lower. Well, for me, it's a 9. For me, it's a 9. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, look at that picture of Nicole Piastri, Oscar's mum, and Oscar. It warmed my soul when I've got an image bank that I use, I pay a license for, and for all my images that I use in all my videos and all these live streams, to get them direct from the source in lovely, sharp, high quality. And I saw this one of Nicole and Oscar, and it warmed my heart somewhat, didn't it? Because she doesn't get to many races. She's watching from Australia. She's very active on Twitter. And she's cultivated quite the audience over there. And yeah, she was there to welcome Oscar with open arms. The coolest man in the room, mind you, Oscar Piastri. Gave a little yes when he passed the start-finish line, hit the checkered flag. But he's not a big emotional guy, and that's part of what makes him so scary for the rest, okay? Because he has everything. He has it all. Now that he's got on top of that tyre management, which, you know, Charles Leclerc's a bit of a master of, but he couldn't keep up with Oscar, kept him in the dirty air behind him towards the end, and Oscar's rears fell off. Sorry, not Oscar's. Charles' rears fell off a cliff, ended up extending a big gap at the end. He ended up winning with that VSC by like over 10 seconds, which is actually crazy, considering where that race was looking at one stage. But yeah, for me, it's a comfortable and easy 9 out of 10. No doubt in my mind. And most of you agree. The new Kimi, indeed. The new Kimi. It's always kind of... The thing is with Kimi, you know what? They're similar in some aspects, but also they're very... You know, Oscar's quite sarcastic, but also he's quite warm. And I think Kimi, it was just like Oscar's cool, but he's warm. You know what I mean? He's like ice level, but also he's very like witty and he's quite charming. And I think his character and his personality is starting to come out as he kind of settles in to this environment where he looked firmly at home, not like a driver who's only been in the sport for 1 2/3 of a season. So impressive. And Arrow Productions, good day from Perth. I'm sure a lot of you Australians have stayed up for this one because he put on a hell of a performance, did young Oscar Piastri. Can he be the next Australian since Alan Jones? Am I missing anyone? Any Australians who have won a F1 World Championship since Alan Jones? Obviously, Ricciardo's been good, but never quite got that shot when he was banging at Red Bull. I think that is. It's since Alan Jones, isn't it? Oh, this kid's good. This kid is mustard. And I tell you what, believe the hype. Believe the hype, because I absolutely do. Okay, I absolutely do. Right, let's race result For the 2024 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, OSCAR Piastri wins ahead of Charles Leclerc. George Russell, once again, finds himself on the podium, kind of out of nowhere. Inherited a win in Austria, of course, when Max and Lando came together. Inherited a P3 podium here in Baku, once Checo and Carlos did, which we will get into. Do not you worry at all. We will talk about that, because I'll tell you what, that Perez Sainz one, I've never seen so much. you go on the posts that F1 have posted about it, and Sky Sports F1's posted about it, and whatever, and like the top comment is that it's 100% Perez, for example's fault, and then the next top comment is it's 100% Sainz's fault, and then the next post is 100% Sainz's fault, then 100% Perez. It's just completely it's like the most partisan issue I've seen since 2021, for crying out loud. So yeah, that was a little bit naughty. But of course, what that did mean, 2 drivers in the top 10 crashing out, meant that everyone else was bumped up 2 places, which meant that Norris recovered in the end from what? Lando was P17 in qualifying, then started P15 because of Gasly and Hamilton taking their drops, and then gained 2 positions at the end as well. So Lando Norris P4 with fastest lap as well, managed to get ahead of Max even where he started. Pretty impressive recovery drive, you've got to say, from Lando, but Max not at all happy with his car. And he was actually, of the top teams, he was the lowest finisher of the ones who finished anyway, obviously Perez and Sainz. But they were both ahead of Max in the end. Very uncharacteristic, incredibly uncharacteristically terrible day at the office. Perez Verstappened Max. He did. That was the gap. Like, it was insane. It was comfortable double digits gaps. Oh yeah, and Hamilton, by the way. I'm forgetting Hamilton. That's how forgettable Lewis's race was. I completely forgot about Lewis Hamilton, who's down there in P9. Jesus Christ. Alex Albon P7. Franco Colapinto P8. What a day for Williams. What a day for Williams. Yeah, to be fair, Lewis did start from the pits, but even so, damn. What a terrible day for Mercedes. I mean, Russell, of course, inherited the podium, but even George was just in the middle of nowhere, really. He was like way ahead of the Williamses, or should I say Alonso, who also we saw nothing of all race. Man, there were some bangs, there were some serious clangs as well, and Lewis Hamilton was one of them. Not happy with his car at all. Just not at the races, Lewis. It's one of them, isn't it? He's had such a polarising 2024. That high at Silverstone was great, but Ian Arth had some lows, and this was one of them. Like, I know he was starting from the pit lane and that, taking a new engine, but struggling with traffic all race. Not the only one, of course. Thermal degradation on the tyres really hit him as well. Yeah, I think Lewis is... I think there's these moments, but I think he's got to have switched his focus, and he's even subconsciously to Ferrari, I think, next year. And then Ollie Behrman, out of nowhere, gets P10. You thought Hulkenberg had it, but he didn't. It was a bit chaotic at the end. And Ollie Behrman, 2 point scoring finishes in 2 Formula 1 races, which is a way better record than he's had in Formula 2 this year. Pierre Gasly P12 tried a one-stop right to the end. Unfortunately for Alpine, it could have clutched up, but that safety... Well, it wasn't even a safety car, it was a VSC in the end. Came way too late for them. They tried to do an Albon Australia by just going all the way. And it, again, for Pierre, it almost kind of worked. Ricciardo P13, Joe P14 ahead of Valtteri Bottas, and actually did all right this weekend. The one weekend I put him as clanger driver, he actually, relative to where Sauber are, does pretty good. So fair play to him. Esteban Ocon P15, Bottas 16, and then Perez, Sainz, Stroll, Tsunoda do not finish. Right. Damn. I mean, yes, I know Ollie got 2 wins in F2, but you know, he's not been able to do much else. He's not been able to make much more of an impact. Although, talking of F2, Gabriel Bortoleto now leads the Formula 2 Drivers' Championship after taking a P4 in the feature race, which had a nasty shunt, didn't it, at the start? Kushmani stalled it, although Kushmani got a penalty of some kind, because I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did something wrong on the start, which then resulted in his car not getting away because he missed something or some kind of technical infringement, on his part, which then caused this massive accident behind him. Really scary one. But yeah, Bortoleto, could he go back-to-back F3, F2? It's looking good. He's certainly got the momentum over Hadjar. That is for sure. But yeah, horrific crash that was in F2. But fortunately, everyone is okay, which of course is the main thing. Right, so that's how the race finished. How does that affect the driver standings? Well, 59 points is now the gap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Still a very long way. Still a very big gap. Was Lando able to capitalise as much as he could have this weekend? No, he was not. Without the Q1 exit on Saturday, if, buts and maybes. But that was an opportunity missed. Max struggling so much. We know Red Bull were planning an upgrade for Austin. Helmut Marko's talked at length about this. So Singapore is going to be another struggle for Red Bull. Opportunity missed for sure. However, look, for me, I've seen all I need to see about what happened on Saturday. It was to come across Ocon at the point he did, and I think the stewards were right to show yellow flags at the point of the track that they did, because, look, realistically, that quick left-right section, if you've got a car going slow through there, you are asking for a massive accident. So I completely get why the stewards showed the yellow flag with Ocon going through that part and didn't show him the yellow flag. They showed him a white flag for the rest of his lap up until that point, because obviously Ocon hit the wall and was crawling around. I think they were right to show the yellow flag, because it's all well and good saying you didn't need to show it, but that part of the track is the sketchiest part to have a slow-moving car by a considerable margin. So, you know what? It's unlucky when you leave your lap that late. These things happen sometimes. That's racing. And unfortunately, Lando got caught out, had to start P17, recovered to P4 in the end. Damage limited somewhat, but maybe could have, well, definitely could have been better if he hadn't have qualified so low down. But either way, 59 points, Drivers' Championship. It was always going to take something, a consistent winner to emerge instead of Max. And you've got to remember, right, at the start of this year, Max was consistently winning himself. He wasn't sharing wins with Sergio. It was Max consistently winning himself. We're not getting a consistent winner now. We're getting Charles winning races. We're getting Lando. We're getting George. We're getting Oscar. We're getting Lewis. But we're not getting a consistent winner. So that is what's going to secure Max this championship. And as much as, you know, it would be really exciting to see it go down to the line. 59 points with 7 to go. Is asked, what is the maths on that actually? 59 divided by 7. 8.4 points per race Lando has to gap. So, I mean, look, that's Max finishing P3 and Lando winning every remaining race. But again, that's so unlikely with how competitive it is. You look at Oscar, you look at Charles, particularly Charles, even Carlos catching up at the end. So, yeah. Marathon, not sprint, as Lewis famously once said. Charles Leclerc is, 235 to Lando's 254, so 19 points behind Lando Norris. And Oscar Piastri, big points on the board now. He's only 13 behind Charles. Still, 32 behind Lando. Singapore is going to be big. We'll see what happens in Singapore. The thing is, right, what I think realistically needs to happen in Singapore is McLaren need to absolutely maximise it. Lando needs to win. Max needs to have an absolute, out of the points level howler. Because Red Bull are bringing an upgrade in Austin. Which, okay, upgrades may be the wrong word. A change that should make the car more drivable between now and the end of the season to get this championship over the line. Because if Max from Red Bull don't convert this driver's title this year, they're not going to win the Constructors. They're already behind McLaren. Spoiler alert. Next year is so up in the air. Again, last 7 races, Oscar's got more points than anyone else. It's so up in the air for next season. Red Bull really need to forget about 2025 right now. Just all resource on this year's car to get this championship across the line. And if it means 2025 is a bit rubbish, so be it. Because it's going to be so competitive anyway in 2025. So just focus all your attention on fixing this year's car to get it over the line. And then, obviously, in 2025, you can shift focus to 26, blah, blah, blah. You know? Other movers and shakers, kind of... This is Checo's best race of the year by a margin, I think, really. Like, in terms of, especially given the... I know, obviously, he was good at the start of the year. But I think given the pressure, the expectation, the difficulties with the car, I think this is Checo's most impressive performance of the year. For him to hang like he did. And, you know, if Lando's not helping out Oscar, which is kind of funny to keep him back, maybe Perez gets the jump on Piastri and possibly wins this race. Perez very much could have won this race. He was driving at a level which would have merited a win. If Checo had won this race and things had gone slightly different with Lando not holding him up, like, he definitely could have won this race. And it's a long time. And he Verstappened Max, you know? Huge. Yet, all of that, he scores no points and finally drops below George Russell in the Drivers' Championship. Same number of points, but George has won a race, Checo hasn't. So, which is kind of savage, really. The fact that he had his best race of the year, in my opinion, and then still falls behind George this weekend. Otherwise, in terms of movers, Albon, you know it. Oh, Alex, love it. Love to see it after the team did their best to... I'm joking. Obviously, hilarious leaving the thing in the car in Q3, so he had to pull in and pull it out, the thing that caused the whatever behind him. And fortunately, they didn't miss out that much because it happened in Q3. If that had happened in Q1 and put him out early doors, that's a massive disaster. Q3, realistically, Williams aren't going to qualify. You know, P7 is probably their highest potential, wouldn't it? Quicker than Alonso, maybe. Obviously, with Lando going out in Q1. But yeah, big points on the board for both Alex and Franco. Franco scores 4 points, already ahead of Bottas, Sargent, and Joe is Franco. Big day for Williams. Big day indeed. Big day indeed. So yeah, they're the main movers and the shakers. Not much more to say other than that. Right, but what about the teams? Constructors, championship-wise, and for all you visual viewers, I've added the little gaps between the points in the Constructors here as well. So McLaren go 20 points ahead of Red Bull Racing and lead the 2024 Constructors' Championship. And, like, realistically, it's looking pretty done. I mean, the chance of Ferrari catching Red Bull is high, I think. I think it's very high. As much as Checo performed well here, and I think will perform well in Singapore, and I think Max will struggle again in Singapore, I don't see any logic as to why that won't turn around, because Checo knows how to drive this Red Bull in its current configuration around these types of tracks, and Max clearly is really struggling with it. I think for Austin and Sao Paulo and Abu Dhabi, I think Max will be firmly on top versus Checo again. Maybe Checo can carry this, but this was always going to be a good track for Checo. It's a fly in the pan. I hope this is a sign of things to come for him, because it's been such uncomfortable viewing so often watching Checo. But do I think Red Bull will hold on to... Ooh, almost fell over. Onto P2 in the Constructors? I do not. I think Ferrari will catch. Why is Max struggling so much? Bastian, if I had the answer to that, they'd be on the blower. Tommo, help us out, mate. You've got the answers. Not quite Adrian Newey. Maybe. I'm only 31. I've got time. Other than that, big change at the bottom. Williams jump Alpine, 16 points now to 13. So 10 points on the board for Williams. Big day for them in the Constructors. And look, momentum-wise, you've got to say Haas and Williams both looking quicker than the Racing Bulls. They're going to be seeing what P6 in the Constructors is absolutely up for grabs. And for teams like Haas and Williams, which you've got to say are probably the most financially insecure teams on the grid, they will benefit massively from the prize pot bump that will come with a couple of places higher in the Constructors. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And don't you worry that I see a few of you in the live chat talking about McLaren illegal rear wing. We'll get onto that. We'll talk about, and we'll talk, of course, about Checo and Carlos as well. Plenty of time for that. We're only 20 minutes in, right? We can't peak too early, people. Races like this don't come along every day of the week, so let's make the most and enjoy them while they're here. Right, so let's reflect, shall we, on predictions. Thursday or Wednesday, whenever I did the pre-race for this Grand Prix, of course, I did my predictions and I got you to do yours. Let's reflect and see how we did. So for me, it's not great. Race winner Charles Leclerc, wrong. Banger drive Ollie Behrman, I'm going to say half a point for that. Okay, I decide how the points are given. I think half a point for Ollie. Got into the points. He was fortunate to get into the points, but also he took the opportunity. First race in the Haas, did very well. Banger driver, not quite for me. But half a point for Ollie. Well done. Chelmsford's finest, smashed it. After me, of course. Clanger drive, Zhou Guanyu. No. All of you were like, oh, it's just an easy vote, giving it to Joe. Of course he's going to clank. No. He actually, hard tyre at the start, he actually did well. Finished ahead of Ocon and Bottas. Did a good job. Not great, but relative to Sauber and where they are, did a good job. So no, Zhou Guanyu is not clanger drive. Banger team, Haas. A point for Ollie. P11 for Nico. Another P11 for Nico. Oh my God, how many P11s is he? Right, hang on. Sorry. I need to check how many times has Nico Hülkenberg, not Rosberg, finished P11 this season. Right. Oh my God, this is actually going to be chaotic. Right. So, Nico Hülkenberg has finished P11. Let me just get the little thing here. Right. So, he's finished P11 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 17 races. Hülkenberg's finished P11. 7 times in 17 races. That's barbaric. Absolutely barbaric. What a nightmare. So, yeah. And then Clanger Team Haas. Sorry, not Clanger Team Haas. Clanger Team Alpine. Given... Look, I think realistically, I've given it half a point, but you're going to see why maybe... Look, it could have been better from Alpine in terms of the build-up. The build-up for Alpine was shocking, was absolutely appalling. But the race, I think they delivered as much as they realistically could and got Gasly P12. So it could have been worse from that point of view. That's all I'm saying. So I'm giving myself 1.5 points out of 5 for that, okay? I'm giving myself 1.5 points for me, for moi. Okay? And by the way, anyone who's super chatted, I will get to the super chats shortly. I just want to get through these predictions first. Your predictions, I'm rating the same. So, race winner, Charles Leclerc, no. Banger drive, Charles Leclerc, half a point. I think he drove very well. I think he got... Oscar put an incredible move on Charles. Do I think Charles could have done more to defend that move? I do. I do think he could have done more. I think if Charles had defended the inside, maybe Oscar would have just swept around the outside. But he came from so far back. Oscar came from so far back. But sometimes you've just got to put your hands up and be like, you know what? There's not much Charles could have done there. It was just a banger from Oscar. But do I think Charles could have done a bit more? Perhaps. Either way, half a point. Very good drive from Charles Leclerc. Very good drive. Clanger drive Lando. No, absolutely not. Good recovery from him in the end. Banger team Ferrari. Half a point again. I think there were banginger teams that banged more, but they were still very good. And first stint was great. You're right, for sure. First stint was fantastic for him. But this is one of them, innit? It really shows how different cars you had the C3 and C4. C3 was the hard tyre, C4 was the medium, and different cars in the same conditions will extract different performance from different compounds now. It's getting that not binary, it's getting that in the weeds almost. It's getting that finite. These little details are just all coming into play because it's so close. So I'm giving Ferrari half a point. And then clanger team Red Bull, look, Checo could have won the race. I think he had the pace to win the race. So I'm not going to give clanger team to Red Bull. But I get what you mean. Max should not be all out of sorts. If Red Bull weren't struggling so much with their car, Max is 100%. Of course he's competing for a win here. But that car, damn, tough for Red Bull Racing. Right, before we go on to my bangers and clangers for the 2024 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, I've just seen a few super chats. Just want to catch up on. Thank you, Brian. When is the collab with GeoWizard? We need a straight line mission across Silverstone. Is that someone who does what's it? GeoGuessr. I had a little. I think it was like a few months ago. I had a little period when I was just like watching loads of GeoGuessr stuff, and times change, But maybe we'll see how that changes. We'll see if that one comes to the fore. Thank you, Michael, as well for the super chat. If Carlos Sainz is a smooth operator, then what is Oscar? I've shown more excitement at funerals. Dude is the smoothest operator, and I guess by showing you mean seen more excitement at funerals. Yeah, look, I mean, the thing is, it's that mentality, it's that foundational mentality who Oscar Piastri is as a human being that will serve him so well going forward, so incredibly well going forwards. Oscar Piastri, it's exactly what you want. In fact, on Ted's notebook after the race, he was talking to Tom Stallard, Oscar Piastri's race engineer, and he was like, it's just so calm. And it has a really good impact on the team as well, because when you've got a driver who's very chill and level-headed, then that permeates throughout his side of the garage, and that can only serve to kind of benefit the team more broadly. So Oscar being as chilled out as he is, there's extra value to that. So well done, McLaren. You did a good job picking him up. And Alpine, hang your heads in shame for letting this kid go. Thank you, Puff Piastri, as well. Puff did it. Awesome overtake to get the clean air. That overtake was something else. It was. I don't want to be too harsh on Charles. It was a fantastic overtake. But I think Charles will look back at that and be like, I could have done a bit more. I could be wrong. I just, that's the way I see it. He said he had to make the move faster. It wouldn't happen. Big love. Cheers, Piastri. What a day. What a day. You got to be proud of you, boy. Any Australians out, you got to be very proud of him, because that was I know Ted said it post-race in his notebook, but I am going to steal it. I do feel like this was you cannot, no one can objectively look at Piastri now and be like, he's not ready for 25 and a title fight, because he absolutely is. He absolutely is. Thank you, Mitt Sevo. Points for Behrman, points for Colapinto, points for Alonso. Great performance from all the rookies. Fernando can't keep getting away with this, playing these cards. No, it was a fantastic job, for sure, from Colapinto in particular. Honestly, like, Ollie's had good preparation. Ollie's had way more preparation, realistically, than Franco has. And for Franco, yes, of course, Williams have definitely turned over a new leaf with this upgrade, this weight shedding upgrade, essentially, that they've brought. Because the last few races have been absolutely. I mean, where's Alex been? The last few, Alex has done. So it's P9 in Italy, P7 Azerbaijan, P14 in Zandvoort, but I mean, it should have really been better than that. P9 in Britain as well. I think, look, Williams are onto a good thing, clearly. They've definitely turned something, They're moving in the correct direction. So well done them. Well done them. Lyndon, where's that shirt from? This shirt is Carhartt. Carhartt shirt. When it's a little bit chilly, I like to chuck this one over. You know, it gives the extra little layer, a bit more comfort. You know, a bit more comfort when it's starting to get a bit cold in the UK, it gets really cold. Anyone remember? I was recording a video in here once, and it was 7 degrees Celsius in here. 7. I could see my breath while I was recording. My laptop was fine though, because obviously it means that it's not overheating at all in any way, shape or form. Thank you, Say. Congrats to McLaren on taking the Constructors lead. Unbelievable work from the orange. You can't call them orange, Sai. They're papaya. You have to call them papaya. They're very protective of it. You've got to call them papaya, okay? This is the brand. It's like, you wouldn't call Tommo F1 pink. You wouldn't call that like, it's like, look, this colour here, this is light red. No, it's Tommo F1 pink, all right? Get it right, sire. Get it right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Angus, as well, for the super chat. Disappointed in McLaren. They should have ordered Piastri to drop behind Lando. Somebody please think of the Drivers' Championship. Wink. I can wink easier with my right eye, not my left eye, not so much. Very, very good. Good bait there, Angus. I like that. And thank you, E. You're the best, Tommo. Well, it's all relative, isn't it? Compared to what? You know? But thank you, E, for every gamer. That's very kind of you. Okay, cool. Excellent. Let's go back to bangers and clangers. Azerbaijan Grand Prix edition. Let's get into it. My banger drive is obviously Oscar Piastri. Like, obviously. That move he put on. You know, that move he put on Charles reminded me of the move that Charles put on Sergio in Vegas last year. Do you remember that one? It's kind of the corner just before the end, and Charles launched it up the inside. Kind of caught Perez off guard. He wasn't expecting it. From deep, chucked it in. Ooh. Piastri, you know what impressed me most though? Well, not most. That move was ridiculous. But what impressed me just as much was lap after lap after lap with Charles right there. A guy who's been there, done that, been in F1 since 2018, been at Ferrari since 2019. Taken it to Lewis, taken it to Seb, taken it to Max. And Piastri's just there. No mistakes. Just banging in lap after lap after lap. Charles there, but he just doesn't let him through. And Charles will go for that overtake if he thinks it's there. And Oscar just didn't allow it. And he just defended perfectly. He defended so well. His defence, his attack. This was Oscar's best drive in Formula One. It's the most impressed I've... For a driver with as little experience relative to the field that he has. 30, whatever races it is. 35, whatever it is. My goodness. That was unbelievable. Unbelievable from Oscar Piastri. So good. So you take the context of his relative naivety of youth, okay? And it's impressive. But you add that back in and it's like, come on, this guy is so ready for 25 and a title fight. And Lando, this is the guy you got to worry about, right? This is the guy. McLaren wanted 2 number ones. And they've, without doubt, got 2 drivers capable of winning a world championship. And I've been saying this for, you know, a good last... I remember I went on Missed Apex with Spanners and I said, and that was what, a couple of months ago, I was like, I think Oscar will outscore Lando between now and the end of the season. And he's outscored everyone over the last 7 races. Lando has to now step up because I think that as much as I do think Lando still has the edge in ultimate 1-lap pace over Oscar, and perhaps a slight edge in tyre management, I think in every other facet, Oscar is at least equal, if not clear. And Lando needs to recover, you know. He needs to see this and step up to it. It would have been much easier for Lando if Daniel had stayed the number 2 and he'd continue just, you know, 1 in every 4, maybe 3 races, Daniel outperforms Lando, but typically Lando's got the legs on him. But this guy, not at all. Not at all. So well done, Oscar Piastri. You are my banger driver. But what about yours? Well, 1,894 of you voted. Thank you very much for voting. To say Lemon Chris, you just said Piastri is terrible with tyre management still. Did you not watch the race today, Lemon Chris? A race that everyone was talking... This was a tyre race. This was a tyre, be that thermal degradation, be that friction, physical degradation. No, he's not he's objectively not terrible with tyre management. He might still be missing a little bit, but again, come 2025, he will be near as makes no difference the finished article. I have no doubt in my mind. But either way, anyway, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just don't agree with yours, Lemon, and that's fine. That is fine. We live in a society. Your banger drive, 70% of the vote, it's Oscar Piastri. No surprise there. For all the reasons I've stated, I guess, and many more perhaps. If you're Australian, I'm sure that would have helped as well. And I know many of you are. 13% Franco Colapinto. Very good. Very, very good. I mean, look, there's no guarantee Alex would have gone quicker than Franco, by the way, if he had got that second lap in qualifying. Incredible job from Franco. Hang in there with the best, with the top, in that kind of, around Hulkenberg and Alonso and Albon, and just looks at home, looks comfortable. It does make you think, doesn't it? Because, Franco was having a good F2 season, hadn't had loads of preparation, hadn't done loads of FP1s for Williams, had done, did Silverstone earlier this year. It does make you think, doesn't it? And we've seen how impressive the F2 field was going into this season, how tight and competitive it has been. How many drivers could come in and do a good job? Because we've seen Franco come in, again, relatively not unimpressive, but like just decent F2 standings. Chuck him in, and he's actually taken it like a duck to water, seemingly. Yet Logan Sargent's got like a year and had a, better, he finished 3rd, 4th in F2, wasn't it? 4th, I think. So was running technically better in F2 than Colapinto was at any point in Formula 2, and just in a year and a half just can never get on top of it. Just goes to show Formula 2 isn't the be-all and end-all. I remember that was another notebook insight from Vitantonio Liuzzi, if you remember that name. He was the one who had that really scary crash with Michael Schumacher at Abu Dhabi. And he believes that your record in karting is more, your ability in a kart is more closely kind of, what am I trying to say? Your ability in the kart, a go-kart versus a Formula 2, Formula 3 car, correlates, that's the word I'm looking for, correlates more with your ability in a Formula 1 car, according to Liuzzi anyway, which I thought was really interesting. Because Formula 2, Super Formula, IndyCar, all of these open wheelers, they are fundamentally very different, as is Formula 1, right? And it's being suited to that style of car that's going to either make or break you. 7% Norris as well, banger drive. Very good recovery, ultimately from Lando. I don't think he could have done too much more. He got stuck behind Alex for a long time, which really did ruin any chance of him catching George. I think all things considered, on today he did pretty much as much as you could really hope and really expect. So yeah, it wasn't a banger drive. I don't agree that 7% of you. I don't think of course, Oscar had the better drive, but Alex did a good job. And then, of course, Alex Albon, taking those hards a long time. He's a bit of a tyre whisperer, isn't he? He's got that in his locker. It's not the first time either from old Alex. By the way, thank you, Banana Cream, for the super chat. Woke up 4 a.m. in California to watch this race, wearing Checo merch. Super excited for the king of the streets to reclaim his honour. Shocked, but very happy to see Oscar take Checo's throne. I'm just going to say throne. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, look, the turnaround in performance from Checo was wow. From what it has been to what it was there, man, he was, again, Checo, Verstappen, Max, which is How? It's crazy. So, that's banger drive. What about clanger drive? Well, my clanger drive from the 2024 Azerbaijan Grand Prix is Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll. Now, a lot of this comes down to what you believe is enough space to be left at the start. Well, okay, let's go back a little bit more. So, massively out-qualified by Fernando Alonso. Fernando did a great job, comfortably into Q3, qualified P7, wasn't it? Or 6? I think it was 7. And Lance was down in like P15. So, first point against. Oh, I've literally never heard that word before. There you go. And then, obviously, his move on Yuki. Now, it's lap 1, okay? These things aren't typically punished. Lance goes for the move on the inside, which he's entitled to do. The problem for me, I don't think he gets enough alongside Yuki Tsunoda. That's ultimately where it stands with me. If he breaks that tiny little bit later, carries a bit more speed, and really gets his car aggressively alongside Yuki's and takes ownership of that corner, fine. For me, he doesn't. It's close. It is close. To be fair to Lance, it is close. But he just wasn't quite far enough alongside. And so he should have bailed. He doesn't. Yuki turns in, contact, hole in Yuki's side pod. Lance carries on, pits, and eventually the car is retired. And given where Fernando finished, I mean, yeah, it's a bad race for Lance Stroll. But there were some other races, to be fair. There were some other drivers, should I say, definitely in contention of clanger. Again, relative to current, you got to say Max. I say Lewis as well. As much as he wasn't helped by the pit lane start, just wasn't able to make any progress through, struggling on the tyres. You know, saying it was really good Saturday, terrible Sunday. You know, how much of that, of course, that brings out the conspiracies in force, right? Toto said it's just hotter on Sunday than it was on Saturday, sorry, not Saturday versus Sunday, Friday versus Saturday. Lewis was very happy with the car on Friday, very unhappy with it on Saturday. George, funny enough, was the opposite. But yeah, it wasn't a good race from either of the GOATs, should you say, right? Lewis and Max are often considered by many to be two of the GOATs. Not a good race from either of them, to be fair. But yeah, there's a few drivers who could have got it. I've given it to Lance. You've given it to Lance. 29% of the vote for Lance Stroll. 26% for Max. 19% for Lewis Hamilton. 8% for Sergio Perez. Now, again, I think those 8% of people are either Carlos Sainz fans or just fans, not necessarily of Carlos Sainz, who believe he was primarily at fault for the crash with Carlos Sainz, which we will get into. But yeah, I was surprised 8% at Perez because, yeah, we'll get into it. So those are your clangers. What about banger team? For me, Williams, kind of easy, really. Big points, jumped Alpine, lovely jubbly. For you, Williams, 63% of the vote, 32% McLaren. It's fair. Piastri kind of won the race and McLaren played that really well for Oscar. And I don't really, again, what happened to Lando on Saturday in qualifying, it's just bad luck. I don't really put anything on. I think they were right to show the waved yellows where they did. I don't really blame Lando, don't really blame McLaren. These things happen sometimes. And he recovered well, so fair play, McLaren. 4% Ferrari, which, yeah. I mean, Sainz did well to reel them in at the end, didn't he? To be fair to him, so. But yeah, only 3 teams getting the banger team vote of any meaningful amount anyway. And finally, clanger team for me, Sauber. Look, at the end of the day, as much as Joe did okay, Bottas did, they're 14th and 16th, nowhere near. Almost got lapped, did Bottas. It's still really bad. So, you know what? Red Bull, you could have said, well, yeah, but Perez, I think on merit, could have won that race if things had gone a little bit differently for him. So yeah, I'm going Sauber for clanger. And you lot have gone for Sauber for clanger. So we've gone the exact same. Slight different icon placement. 30% Sauber. 29% of you went Red Bull for clanger team. So Red Bull almost took it for you, but Sauber just about edged it out. 17% Racing Bulls. Sonoda's unlucky. Ricardo, it's a bit nowhere, to be honest. Not a great race for him. 17% Alpine. They did have a very bad build-up, but actually executed the race quite well. So we all agree for once, which is a turn up for the books, isn't it? Lovely jubbly. Right, cool, excellent, amazing, lovely. Have I missed any super chats? I don't think I have. No, we're good. We're cooking. Right, let's go team by team then. We'll start with McLaren because they're the first ones to appear on my screen. Yeah, I guess Oscar's that guy. Lando is incredible. But still, obviously, he did a great job to recover to where he did. I don't think he could have done much more today. And we'll see what happens in Singapore. I think 2025 is going to be incredible. I cannot wait. It's going to take... McLaren need a 1-2 with Lando 1 and Oscar being absolutely problematic with the Red Bulls, with Max obviously in particular, for there to be any shot. The Drivers' Championship is just, I don't think it's going to happen. Oh yeah, there we go. Is it illegal? Okay. Is it illegal? That is the question. Let me try, actually. You know what? I can get some screen share going on here. Because I want to show you what the talk of the town is with the McLaren. So, recently there was talk about the McLaren front wing potentially being illegal because of it flexing. Now, of course, flexible front rear wings or wings in general, that is it's a topic that's been spoken about a lot. We saw a lot of it with the front wing in Monza, people sharing little clips of the McLaren front wing flexing, and it was deemed legal because because these things are tested with static tests. Ultimately, it's a static wing test that is done to deem whether it is or is not flexing too much. Not a test done under, but obviously they have now added cameras and looking at these things and monitoring whether they're flexing too much or too little. Right, okay. So now we've got a new one, which is once again the McLaren, and I've got a little. I've just nicked this off of someone on Twitter. Let me just. This is the one. Bosh. There we go. Let me get this nicely cropped in for the video. So you can see here, make my head a little smaller because you don't need my head's big enough as it is. So you see McLaren on the left, the Red Bull in the middle, and the Ferrari on the right. And Exhibit A is this little bit here, where you can see that this is at the end of the straight, the fastest part of the track. The DRS flap is flexing ever so slightly open to allow, essentially, for a little bit less drag. That's why it's designed this way. You can see on the Red Bull and the Ferrari, doesn't seem to really flex at all. Now, of course, these components are carbon fibre, so a degree of flexibility is inevitable. Otherwise, they'd be too brittle. They wouldn't these components need to be able to flex, and the FIA's tests are static ones. Not obviously, it's hard to test these things under load, and if these components are passing the FIA and Formula One's tests, static tests, but then they are flexing. The thing is, right, when we talk about legality or illegality, it is the FIA who come up with the rules. The rules of F1 do not exist in nature. They are human-made rules, okay? So if the FIA are doing these tests and be like, right, your wing isn't allowed to flex by more than a certain amount that is tested under a static load-bearing test. If you pass that test, but then when you're driving it, it flexes a little bit more, then as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty fair game. Because it's not like no one can see this. Like, it's not like McLaren or any team can hide how much their wings are deflecting, because it's literally on the broadcast. Like, we can all see these images. We can all see the onboards. Every single onboard is broadcast. So, look, if it passes the test to deem whether it's too flexible, whether it's not too flexible, then it's not too flexible. They come up with the rules. That's how they test it. It's not like it can be hidden, and that it's literally just a material that, well, it passes the test. I don't know how else to do it. It passes the test, that the static test. If it passes that static test, then it's legal. I mean, they're quite literally not making it illegal because of the entertainment value. But if it passes the static test, then it passes the static test. So, I don't know. What else do you want? Like, surely everyone should design their like, surely the thing to do, if you know that you're going to benefit from these things deflecting, then you design it so it just about passed the static tests, but then when you're driving, it deflects. And that's exactly what McLaren have done. And that's to the FIA's rule books, the FIA legality standard that has been set by the people who come up with the rules. I mean, anything more than that, and you're just overcomplicating it for no reason. If the FIA don't want... If the FIA wanted absolutely no... They should change the test. They should increase the amount of... Because I'm sure if the FIA increased the static test load that's put on these wings to test them, the McLaren, I guess, probably would flex first and would fail first. But surely that's... If it passes the test, then it's legal. If it doesn't, illegal. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's just... Because to do anything more than that is just to complicate it. And if the other teams are not designing their wings to comply with these tests, but also potentially gain advantage in the race, well, you've got to say, well, credit to McLaren for doing that. That's the way I see it. I don't think it's any deeper than that. And if Red Bull and Ferrari aren't designing their wings in such a way that they just about pass that test, but also can gain performance in race by them deflecting, then I think they're missing a trick. That's the way I see it. Tommo, in the past, they have changed rules for teams working around tests like Ferrari Fuel Flow 2019. Well, so Ferrari Fuel Flow 2019, I think, is very different. Very, 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 very different. In a couple of ways, right? So whether or not your front rear wing deflects, right, too much, like everyone can see this, okay? Everyone can look at it. The FIA have cameras that they can measure these things and see how much, right? Flexible wings, the rule is if it passed this static load test, it's legal. And it does, so it's legal. Ferrari, right, with their engine, the excess fuel flow, whatever, that would literally... Well, by all accounts, to what was put out there, but obviously it was quite hushed, which is big part of the problem is it was very hushed. The point is that you're only allowed a certain amount of fuel flow, right? And it wasn't that the fuel flow meter was designed in such a way that it wasn't measuring the fuel flow continuously. It was measuring it at points. And so Ferrari were like, well, you're only measuring it there, so we'll just do it more there. And it looked like a boop, boop, boop. Well, no, that's clearly not the same. That's like, I think that's quite clearly not the same. Because that fuel flow meter isn't a test. That fuel flow meter is measuring what it should be at all times. And it clearly wasn't. The flexible wing is only, we're going to measure it as a static load. And if it passes that, it's fine. So they are different. And look, the thing is, the FIA, they are more than entitled to, and maybe they will. And I wouldn't have an issue with it personally. If the FIA were like, right, for next season, we are going to increase the test. So instead of putting a certain number of like kilonewtons of force in the static load against these wings to check whether they're going to flex or not, we're going to increase that load by a certain amount. And then maybe McLaren would fail that test. In which case they would then have to beef up the thickness with the material, whatever it is, and then it would be less likely to flex. And look, that's the FIA are entitled to do that. And bosh, jobs are good. But at the end of the day, in the rules in their current state, it's legal. The FIA changed rules in 2020 to cut up the floors and blah, blah, blah. And you can say, well, that disadvantaged Mercedes. Perhaps it did. Perhaps that was the design. Perhaps it wasn't. But I think it's pretty clear. I don't think it's a particularly like, I don't know. I don't see this as a very it's got a literal test. It passed the test or it doesn't pass the test. Same rules for everyone. Boshed. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. It's not flexing though. It's literally mini DRS. What do you mean it's not flexing, Nim? I don't understand what you mean it's not. It is literally flexing to create a bigger gap and therefore less drag. So it is by flexing. That's how it is achieving that. It is achieving that by flexing open. So it is flexing. And again, look, if you can design a wing that passes the static load test, but it flexes a tiny little bit when you want it to, well done. Like surely. But that's the way I see it anyway. But of course, I'm just British biased because this New Zealand-founded team, which has the British national anthem for some reason, and I'm clearly I have papaya running through my veins. But there you go. We shall move on. Haas, again, well done, Ollie. He did a good job. He was. I quite like how self-critical he is at the end because it shows that he's really determined. He's a very determined young man, and I think he gave a very good account of himself. Out-qualified Nico. Was slower than Nico in the race. I think that was quite clear to see. But, benefited massively at the end. So what happened to Nico is that when the crash happened with Sainz and Perez, Hülkenberg was really caught up in it, and he copped some damage, some of the material that came off the cars. And I think he lost his front wing end plate. Looking at the replay, it looks like he lost his front wing end plate on the right. But either way, he copped damage. Then he was kind of a bit flustered. Like my understanding is that he was a kind of bit caught up in it. And then he was slow to react to then the green. Because obviously it was only, at that time, it was only yellow flags in that sector. So he was slow to react. And then that meant he got jumped by Lewis into that left-hander. And Ollie. Because Ollie kind of positioned himself well, managed to get around Nico. So, yeah, as much as Nico was quicker in the race, Ollie did a really good job there. Also, Ollie over-saved his tyres when he was on the hards at the start. He over-managed, which, to be fair, Aokamatsu was like, that was kind of on us. It's just a communication thing. Good learning for them. Obviously, him going to be their full-time driver next year, but it bodes well because I think Ollie put in as a performance. You could see Magnussen having just as good a performance, if not a worse performance, maybe a slightly better performance. But he didn't look at C at all. He looked comfortable straight away. So it's a good sign. And yeah, Haas are doing well. Kept Hamilton behind. Yeah, actually, Hamza's a good shout. Actually, yeah, he did a good job defending against Lewis. I thought it was a little bit close in points, but I think he did a good job. So yeah, I think he should be happy there. He should be a happy boy with that one. Good for him. Alpine, disqualified from qualifying. Was it irregular fuel flow, wasn't it? Funny we talk about fuel flow. Gasly got disqualified. Ocon started from the pit lane because he missed out on loads of practice because of car issues. They did a one-stop, tried to bank on like a late safety car. It came, but it came too late. And I mean, it was alright. It was alright in the race. It was just damage was done on Friday and Saturday, really, for Alpine. So, yeah, time will tell whether they can turn that ship around. But Williams' momentum's looking very good. The good thing for Alpine finishing 9th in the Constructors probably is that they will get lots of ATR time. So that's something. But not really much more to say on Pierre or Esteban other than that. Aston Martin, again, Stroll, I thought was wholly at fault. I think given it was lap 1, I get why he didn't get a penalty, but I do think he wasn't far enough alongside Yuki to be entitled the space that he felt he was entitled to, and therefore they had a crash. But I think Fernando had actually a really under the radar banger race because that Aston Martin's been struggling, and he delivered in qualifying, clean in the race. Albon was behind him on mediums, fresh mediums at the end, and couldn't catch Alonso on his old hards. So I think Alonso absolutely smashed it out of the park. He had a fantastic race. He should definitely be up there for banger drive. But, it's very hard to... I think for me, honestly, I think outside of like drivers that didn't put a foot wrong, I feel Alonso didn't put a foot wrong. And if not Piastri, I was tempted to give Alonso banger, honestly. Because I feel like so many other drivers had a good race, but Perez, could have done a bit more without contact with Sainz, and we'll get into that. Leclerc could have done a bit more to defend against Piastri on that dive bomb move, perhaps, and blah, blah, blah. But Alonso, vamos, big race from him. Big race from him. Yeah, maybe that news did light the fire under his little bum. I was so confused why I didn't get more of the popular vote. Well, look, damn, ultimately most fans look just towards what's happening at the front, doesn't it? So a race like Alonso's is never going to get the credit it maybe deserves. Ferrari, again, look, I mean, Charles was a demon on that hard tyre at the start, wasn't he? Sorry, medium tyre at the start. And great job in qualifying, held P1. It was looking pretty done. And then, obviously, Piastri on the hard tyre was a different story. And was able to just took that opportunity and got it done. But I think, for me, it's a great move from Oscar more than a bad defence from Charles. I think just, it's such a dive bomb. It's Ricciardo-esque. Prime Ricciardo-esque anyway from Piastri. But other than that, I think Charles did a really, really good job. I think obviously at the end when his tyres completely fell off, he could well have finished 4th. He almost cooked them too much trying to get the move done on Oscar, which you can understand why. But obviously in the end he gets a P2. It could have been 4th for him. It could have been 4th. But I think Charles... it was because the tyres fell off at the end, and obviously he was trying everything to get that move done, but Oscar just put up such a good defence. Again, it's more like, it's hard to be too critical of Charles when I think it was more just Oscar being an absolute lad. But yeah, Hamza, I do think he was somewhat caught up in. I do agree. I think he will look back on that and be like, yeah, I could have done a bit more there. Because the thing is, it's such a late move. If Charles just not even puts his car on the inside, just in the middle of the road, just gives Oscar... He just had so much confidence on the brakes there. It's such fine margins. That's why we love this game, right? It's fine margins. But yeah, and then obviously Sainz. I guess, should we talk Sainz, Perez now? Because yeah, Sainz was just having a very quiet, didn't really see him at all race as well. Catches up to Sergio. Now I've seen this incident many a time over, and I'm gonna do a poll. Sainz versus Perez. Who's to blame? So we're doing a poll live on YouTube, so get your poll responses ready. So Perez to blame, and Perez predominantly, can't spell to blame, can't spell predominantly today, or any day. Perez predominantly to blame, Sainz predominantly to blame, or racing incident, which means not necessarily 50-50 exact, but, you know, a 60-40 will typically be deemed as a racing incident. So if you were in the stewards room, how do you see that one? Because again, I feel like the reaction was so polarizing. Like, 100% it's Checo's fault, get him, ban him, or, oh my God, Sainz, 100% his fault, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very interested to see how this poll goes. So again, Charles is struggling on his rears. Perez tries to make the move, doesn't pull it off, and Charles defends the inside hard into turn 1 and does a good job, I think. Does a really good job actually defending that position like he did. Perez has to get out of it. That allows Sainz to come through. But then Sainz is carrying the momentum relative to both. So he's got past Checo. He's carrying the momentum relative to Charles. Tries to have a sniff around the outside of turn 2. But we saw loads of people at turn 2. If you're not on the inside, if you're pushed out, you lose loads of momentum. We saw George do it. We saw Gasly do it as well. If you're on the outside, it was obviously very dusty out there because loads of people were getting hung out to drive out there. And hung out to dry out there, should I say. So then, Leclerc stays ahead of Sainz. Sainz then loses momentum, and then all of a sudden, Perez is the one with the momentum behind Sainz. Coming out of turn 2, Sainz is on the outside. And Sainz has said post-race, I've seen his statement, he's been like, I stuck to my normal racing line. Okay, that's what he said post-race. Checo has a nose in on Sainz's left, keeps his nose in, and then the two come together. Now, there is which I will bring up now, there was a statement put out from the FIA, and I'll just, give me 2 secs, I'll just pop this up. I gave this a little share on Twitter, which basically, it has been, there's been no punishment. And just to, can I zoom in on this? No, it's not even going to zoom in. Okay, so Sainz passed Perez after turn 1, was completely ahead at the apex of turn 2, which compromised exits by Sainz. Perez pulled to the inside of Sainz. Sainz reported that he was aware of Perez to his inside. Perez, being slightly behind, was in a better position to see the relative location of the cars, but as the two cars approached the wall on the right at the exit of turn 2, they were about 1 metre apart. From this point and throughout the incident, neither driver steered erratically, and indeed both kept their steering very neutral. The stewards checked the driving line of the drivers on previous laps. Sainz was on or close to his normal racing line, which forms a slight angle away from the right-hand wall, because when you come out of turn 2, there is a slight little move to the left, you know? Slight little like dink in the track just to the left. So the normal racing line is to kind of ever so slightly move to the left. The stewards checked the driving line. No, I've already said that, mate. It was thus apparent that while ahead and having the right to drive his line, Sainz did move slightly towards a car that he had a limited vision of. At the same time, there was nothing unusual about Perez's line, but he could have done more to avoid the car that he had a better view of. So, no further action is what was decided in the end between the two of them. And look, personally, I agree. I think this very much sits in the whole 60-40, 50-50 range, where you've got two drivers. Sainz is moving over, knowing that Checo has space and expecting Checo to use it. Checo is sticking to his line, expecting, not knowing that Sainz has space and is expecting Sainz to use it. And because of that, because neither of them yielded, basically, in any way, not that it's a yield, no one's lifting off, but no one yielded in terms of their steering input, they crashed. So for me, it's as racing incident as it gets, in my opinion. because they both could have done more to avoid the accident, but neither of them did. So, unfortunately, these things can happen. And it was a shame, actually, because it would have been really interesting to see how it would have panned out if the two of them had kept going, because it was, what a race from Perez to that point. Thomas, Sainz veered while Perez is going straight. Lucas, did you not read this? Right, let's find the where is it? From this one, throughout the incident, neither driver steered erratically, and indeed both kept their steering very neutral. That is literally to quote. Okay, that's literally to quote. I've got the wrong overlay on the screen, by the way. I didn't even realise that. Neither driver steered erratically. I'm quoting the people with the telemetry. So I don't think that's correct, what you've just said there, Lucas. But yeah, look, 57% of you think racing incident, 25% Perez predominantly to blame, 19% Sainz predominantly to blame. For me, it's literally they both expected the other one to compensate for their trajectory, and neither of them did, and so they crashed. That's the way I see it. So yeah, not much more to say on that. I've said my piece. Mercedes, difficult race, brother. Yeah, it wasn't one of them, was it? It wasn't a good one. Even though George got a podium, but he was just kind of middle of nowhere. Lewis having to recover through with the new power unit components and suspension component changes, whatever. Yeah, I think look, just Mercedes aren't. They can deliver performance every now and then. But Lucas, I'm not trying to make a fool of you. You've said something, and I just told you what that. You've said something, and I'm showing you why that's wrong. I'm not trying to make a fool of anyone. Don't be silly. Mercedes, yeah, it's just a bit mid, wasn't it? It's literally just mid. It's just mid from Mercedes. So yeah, I just get them to the end of the season. Be interested to see Kimi Antonelli in that car. That they are clearly on to something good, but they're still having. And this is a position we're in at the moment with Formula One, is that each track is going to give. One track's Spa, Mercedes were great. Here they're nowhere, and it's gonna depend. It's gonna massively depend race on race, but yeah, they're just it's not great. Not much more to say apart from not great. Racing Bulls. Again, Yuki had a massive hole in his side pod after the contact with Stroll, so that kind of ended his race. Ricciardo, honestly, we didn't see much of Ricciardo. He didn't seem to really. I mean, he finished behind Gasly, but obviously Gasly went for the balls to the wall one stop. So without that, he's 12th behind Hülkenberg. It's very meh. It's very meh. It's very meh. What can I say? There's not much to it than that. But yeah, it's just frustrating because they brought so many upgrades throughout the course of the year, yet they just don't seem to be going anywhere. They don't seem to be making any progress, which is a shame. But I mean, that's 2 races in a row that Yuki's retired from. And it's just unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. So, not much more to say about Racing Bulls, to be honest. Sauber, again, by their standards, it was okay. Joe actually had an alright race. But, I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, yeah, Racing Bulls, yeah, true. Alita, about the seat, maybe after Singapore we'll know who will be in that Racing Bull seat alongside Yuki Tsunoda next season. Jury's out on that one because I think Checo will have a good Singapore Grand Prix. But will that be enough? A few street circuits over the course of the season where Checo can do well. Is that enough? I just don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's up and down. It's left and right. It's round and round. Who knows with Red Bull? It could go either way. But yeah, Sauber, not great. Bortoleto, in line for that seat. It's him or Bottas, and obviously Bortoleto has just taken the lead in Formula 2. So, maybe. It would be very interesting to see how Tao Pourchaire and Zane Maloney take to that. Because Tao Pourchaire's won Formula 2, but of course they've clearly not seen enough in him. And now they're looking to the McLaren Junior program, which apparently McLaren have allowed Bortoleto, and we've seen a few reports, and it's hard to verify these things exactly, but potentially there's like a 2-year loan, which would make sense. I think, if McLaren were like, cool, right, we've got a good thing with Norris and Piastri. You can have Bortoleto for 2 full seasons, and if we don't offer Bortoleto a seat by 2027, say, so if you can have him for 25, 26, right? If we don't offer him we are allowed to take him from 2027 onwards if we want him. But if we don't give him a seat by 2027, you can just have him, Maybe. And the thing is, obviously, I think Bottas would give value to that team, but at the same time, he's been at that team for 2 years. They're really struggling. They're kind of nowhere. They've got Hülkenberg for next season, who is very experienced. Why not have one really experienced driver like a Nico Hülkenberg who can come in and bring a whole different perspective on things, and then kind of, have a young pretender in the other seat? That could be kind of interesting. That's the one that I think Bottas deserves, merits a seat in Formula 1, but that would be exciting to see Bortoleto get a shot. Absolutely, that would be well exciting to see. Maybe even Colapinto as a long shot. That would be cool. But yeah, Sauber, not bad. Could be better. Red Bull. Look, obviously Max struggled around Baku last season, and it was towards the start of the year, wasn't it? So you got to say that he found something in Baku last year and he set up, and then from then on he just dominated the sport. So this isn't clearly a track that plays to Max's strengths. I think that's fair to say. And after what we saw today, I think that's also fair to say, because we saw Checo, Verstappen, Max, and it is weird, isn't it? It is weird. It is a bit weird. Yeah, as a Max fan, it must have been tough to watch this one. It's just a bit, it's just strange. But I just think this is a product of how close it is at the front and how temperamental these ground effect cars are and can be, and how, the fine setup margins, massive. I mean, Max changed his setup, didn't he, after Pratt FP3? He changed his setup and it actually made the car worse, according to him, for qualifying, and then obviously stuck with that setup for the race. So yeah, it's weird. But again, good momentum for Checo, very good race from him. Hopefully the same for Singapore. It's nice seeing Checo actually be competitive. It's felt so long, but actually to see him competitive and hanging up there, like on the back of Leclerc and Piastri at the end. Tough one for Red Bull to work out, isn't it? And this is the thing. It does make you think, wow, like for Red Bull to dominate like they did and make this sport look so easy for as long as they did. It's easy to look at that and just be like, oh, it's just because they've got the best car. But no, like having the best car isn't enough. I think we've seen that from McLaren and particularly Lando a few times this year. Having the best car on its own is not enough. You need everything to come together, and Red Bull made it come together for as long as they did. But all of a sudden now, it's not easy. It's not easy. Thank you, Tommy Senpai, by the way, for the super chat. If RBR struggled in 25, Max to Aston for 26. Max. Oh, that's up in the air, isn't it? But then who does he replace at Aston? Because Alonso's not going to want to vacate his car, and he's a huge brand deal to Aston Martin. The only driver, really, the only driver who Lawrence Stroll would actually drop his son for is probably Max Verstappen. Time will tell. Time will tell. But Max should definitely be evaluating his options, no doubt. And then finally, Williams. Williams Racing. It's funny, isn't it? I bet Logan Sargent is sitting probably in his gaff in Miami somewhere thinking, damn. Because Logan got one race with the upgrade. Zandvoort, and the upgrade being taking weight off. They lost a good amount of weight from the roll hoop, which is quite high weight. So you take weight off there, it's going to exponentially help the center of gravity. You can get weight off the car, then you can use ballast and be a bit more strategic with where you put the weight to get it to the weight limit. And I was at Indy this weekend with Carl. There we go. Okay. Maybe he's not in Miami. Maybe he's at Nashville, right, watching this. And he must be thinking, like, what could I have done in that car? Because it's not the same. Like, that upgrade was the first upgrade all season, and Logan binned it in Zandvoort. And James Vowles claims that it wasn't because of the crash, but they looked at the numbers and they didn't see that proximity to Alex that they were hoping for from Logan Sargent. Now, do you take Williams at their word? Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. We don't know. At the end of the day, I think Albon is a very good driver. He's a very accomplished driver. And I think he is generally, I still think he's a bit underrated, but that's probably my bias shining through. So I'm prepared to acknowledge that. But I think, you know, Colapinto's come in now and relative to Alex has been closer than Logan has seemingly been, even like when Logan, you know, like pre-upgrade, I guess. But then also a lot of points, Logan didn't have the spec of car that Alex did. So I'm sure he looks at this. I reckon Logan looks at this Williams right now in the same way, or in much of the same way that Alex looks on the 2021 Red Bull. Because Alex definitely feels like he could have done a better job in 2021 because he saw, like, he helped develop that 2021 car because he was at Red Bull in 2020. And he's talked about this in interviews, how like he was like, oh, this 21 car is so much better because he helped develop it in the sim. And I'm sure Logan will look at this and be like, oh, I reckon I could have done a better job in this upgraded Williams. But I think this vindicates the decision to replace him with Franco Colapinto, because Colapinto hasn't, I don't think he's carrying I don't think there's a massive talent gulf between Sargent and Colapinto, but I think Colapinto's coming in fresh, confident, you know, clean sheet of paper, different for the team. The team's carrying a bit more momentum since the upgrade as well, where Alex is scoring points. You know, I think it all kind of plays into each other. And I think that Franco should be very proud of himself. I think Alex did a great job as well. You know, the team, it's a hilarious mistake they made on Saturday, but the punishment wasn't too bad. And yeah, I was hoping that Alex would catch Fernando, but I think that's credit to Fernando more than anything else. So yeah, I feel like whatever numbers James Vowles showed Carlos Sainz to convince him that Williams was the place to come, well, they're clearly delivering on those numbers right now, because I think, you know, James talked about this team has more to give. When we can get the weight off the car, we can be semi-competitive towards like the top end of the midfield, and that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, look, and I think, you know, there might be a young rookie who comes in next year and replaces Daniel Ricciardo, Matt. Oh, sorry, Matt. Ricciardo's your favourite driver. Sorry. Look, 5 don't go into 4. And when you've got Max, Yuki, secure, what do you do with the other 2 seats? Sorry, I'm only winding you up, Matt. Okay, I'm just doing that just for you. Go subscribe to Matt Amos, okay? Just go subscribe to Matt Amos, then he'll forgive me. But yes, well done, Williams. Smashing job, but not literally this time, as in smashing it into the wall, which has happened far too often. for a team that struggles to get the budget together still. But hopefully, given time, they will be once again back cooking. Right, thank you all for watching. Appreciate you taking the time. Very kind of you. Thank you all for staying along till the end. Thank you for watching live on YouTube or after the fact on YouTube or on Spotify, because this is video version on Spotify. Lucas, if you're still in the chat, I'm sorry I made you feel attacked and diminished. I just saw you make a comment that I was like, that what you've said is, for me, it wasn't an opinion. I'm just like, I'm showing you what the FI literally said. So whatever. But I'm sorry I made you feel that way. We're all good here, I hope. But anyway, thank you, Yvonne, Liam, Oliver, Dawood, Dan, Matthew, Ashit, Ethan, Up and Down, Cowrie, Illusion, Sense. Appreciate you taking the time. And I will see you. I'm not sure what video to do. I think I know what video I'm going to do this week, actually. I think I came up with a title for the video while I was doing this live stream. So, yeah. Ciao, adios, I'm done. Goodbye. Arrivederci. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks again. Have a good one, Tyler. Sorry, that's my outro.